Were you able to open it? Everything okay?
Huh?
Were you able to open the
Yeah.
everything okay?
Yeah, but I turned it into a PDF. It's a little easier to get.
Oh, yeah, I bet. I wasn't sure what you were, so I just sent it how I had it.
All right. Are you gonna introduce her? Next. We had a technological.
There we go.
All right.
Go ahead. Our speaker today is our own Brooklyn Smith. And Brooklyn is the corporate services associate with OakStar Bank. And which is one of our corporate members. And she's speaking about money score for older adults, but I know that there's no older adults in this.
Yeah, this wasn't geared towards y'all.
So let you have it.
All right. It's not necessarily all about older adults, it's just more or less the scams that most people fall for, which honestly are young people and old people and maybe people in between. So it's everybody falls for. So it's not just geared towards just older adults. So just go to the first slide. A lot of it that we see at our location, because I am at the Canada main location. So it's a huge location where everyone who's banked there for literally hundreds of years, I feel like. So a lot of that we see is elder financial exploitation. It's a lot of illegal, unauthorized, improper act or process of an individual with resources of an older person. It's usually someone you know, a caretaker, a family member, someone that you wouldn't necessarily expect and that you think has the best intentions, but they don't. The actions result in depriving an older person access to use of their benefits, resources, things that they should have because they've earned them and people are taking them away from them. The next slide. Anything? Some older, like why are older people at risks? And this is also is the same for people under the age of 18, because people do the same thing to younger people. You have a regular income and assets that you've accumulated and that you have established. So naturally you're the best target because you got more money than I do. So I mean, hey, most people who are elderly or younger are trusting, and they aren't going to expect that their grandson or their caretaker who's supposed to be loving and taking care of them are going to do that to them. Not saying that y'all are lonely because you are very socialized, but there's some people who the only people that they get to talk to on a daily or weekly basis are the people who are taking care of them or doing services for them that they would never expect. Sometimes people are vulnerable due to grief from a lost family member or just life in general. Some people don't age well, or they're younger and they don't have the support system that they have as they're growing up. It makes it very difficult and vulnerable. You're reluctant to report exploitation by a family member, caregiver, or someone they depend on. And that's mainly because they don't want them to get in trouble. You know, you don't want to tell the cops that your grandson's taking all your money because you don't want them to get in trouble because you love them. And you don't want them to ruin their future, even though they're ruining their future. So I took like an 180 slide and I jumped into 25, and that was a total nightmare. Not everyone is planning on having a potential loss in the decision-making of capacity. As you know, you could get into an accident, you're younger, or as you age, something could happen and you need help with your financial assistance. And you're not always expecting that. So sometimes your decision on who your attorney is rushed, or who is the beneficiary of your trust or successor of your trust. You're not always, if you're not prepared, that puts you at a greater fault of loss because you're not necessarily making the best decision, you're making the easiest decision. So having everything planned in advance is definitely easier when you're younger as you age. Being cognitively, it's a hard word to say. and paired with diminished ability to make final decisions or detect a fraud or scam. Sometimes you're not thinking of, oh, maybe this person isn't exactly the best fit for me. You're just thinking of, this is what I can think of right now, because I mean, I have that thought daily because I have 5 kids. But you're not always thinking of the long-term solution, because you're thinking of, I need to take care of this right now, and sometimes that's not always the best case. Next slide. Examples of financial exploitation. Exploitation by an agent under power of attorney or person in another fiduciary relationship. That's someone who's handling your estate, a trustee on your trust, or successor trustee on your trust if you're being pressured by them, or power of attorney. Whereas power of attorneys, they're so open that you can give pretty much anyone power of attorney. They don't even have to be a relative, and then you add them to your account, and then essentially, if the bank doesn't have, if they're not doing it like face to face at the bank, they can take all your money, and you have no idea, because legally they can. They're not supposed to, because there's rules against it. But there's nothing physically stopping them from writing themselves a check and putting it in an account, which is sadly what we see happen. Investment fraud and scams. There's so many just investment and credit scams out there. I mean, you see an ad on Facebook, you click it, and it's not a legitimate website. It's insane. So unfortunately, just vetting your investment people that you're using, or using the same investment person and not switching because this guy on the internet says he can get you 10%. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Theft of money, of property by family members, caregivers, and home helpers. It's the same stuff as kind of an over. Lotteries and sweepstakes scams. This gets everybody. So you get a letter saying, "Oh, you won the Canadian lottery." You should know that that's not legitimate, but people still fall for it, which I think is amazing. Obviously, if you didn't buy a ticket, you're not going to win the lottery. I don't know why I have to say that one, but I feel like sometimes you do. Grandparent imposter scams. That one's a fun one. You have your grandma, or you have like your grandma or grandpa, or even a kid, and you have your Jimmy's calling you up saying, "Hey, grandma, I'm in jail. I need you to send me money." It's from an unknown number. You don't recognize the voice. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're pressuring you. You want to call them at the number you have, and you want to verify that they are who they say they are by going a different route. That one's one that we actually haven't seen in a hot minute, thankfully, because it's always interesting. Debt collection scams. I actually had this recently done myself. Someone from not America calls you and says, "Hey, is this IRS? And you have a warrant out for your arrest because you're at $18,000 in debt." But I'm not, though, because I pay my taxes. Those are super fun ones. You have people come in and say, I need $10,000 in cash so I can send it via MoneyGram because the IRS is after me. And it's like, no, we're not going to let you do that. That's a scam. Don't fall for it. And they're always on the phone with them on mute or something crazy. And you can hear the people on the phone. Don't tell them anything. You're not supposed to say all that. You're just supposed to get the money. And it's so scared. It's always so shaking. Romance or charity scams. Those are really common, especially the romance ones. No prince from Zimbabwe is going to ask you for money. Telemarketer, mail offer, or salesperson scams. Those we don't see super often in this area. Telemarketer maybe, but mail offer or salesperson scams aren't super frequent. Usually those are people just trying to sell you some kind of junk. Door-to-door salesmen aren't super common anymore. Telephone, computer, internet scams. Don't let anyone log on your computer unless you know who they are. Don't do it. Don't let anyone log into your online banking unless you know who they are. That is a huge one where we see your whole online banking get compromised, and then they just transfer all your money out and there's no way for us to get it back. It's a total nightmare. Identity theft. I haven't actually seen identity theft. I've seen a lot of like their banks getting compromised, but thankfully I haven't seen that one. So in this area, fingers crossed, it's not super common. Contractor fraud and home improvement scams. Ooh, the lake market. They take your money and then they run. So I would always say with contractor fraud, luckily in this area, we have a lot of really, really good ones. You just might have to wait for them, and always vet your people. Always make sure that you know who they are. And a lot of people do require so much down because they got to buy the stuff. I mean, that makes sense, but just use your gut on that one. I haven't actually seen that one in a long time, thankfully. Who are the abusers? Usually it's people you know, a family member, caregiver, friends, neighbors, acquaintances, some random person that you knew 6 years ago comes and asks you for money. It's always interesting because then they kind of just keep coming to you. Agents under power of attorney or financial advisors, those are usually the people that you least expect, just simply because financial advisors are supposed to have your best interests at heart. But they're not always legit, or they're gonna put your money in some stock that they know is gonna tank, but they're just doing it for the investment, like the money that they get out of it. Power of attorneys is always scary because there's so little that we can control and so little that we can't control. That's one that you really just have to make sure that you're choosing the proper person to be your power of attorney. Or sticky. Way too. These are all some of the things that we kind of already went over. Strangers aren't, you're usually the people who are kind of pretending to be other people. It's all the same basic stuff. Medicare scam operators, those are ones that luckily we haven't seen super often. Usually it's the IRS, but Medicaid's not going to call you, or Medicare's not going to call you. They're going to send you a letter, just like IRS. So definitely, if anyone calls pretending to be from Medicaid, say, hey, your stuff's canceled unless you give me $10,000, it's not legitimate. Why most older people and younger people don't report exploitation, shame and embarrassment, because I mean, I don't want to admit that I got robbed, let alone people who are usually well established in the community and have seen a lot more than I have. A lot of people don't want to admit that they've been bamboozled, essentially. Loyalty to a family member or caregiver that goes along with you don't want them to get in trouble. Fear of retaliation or not being believed. A lot of people, oh, well, they're just trying to be nice, or you gave them that money because it was a gift. A lot of people don't want to be conceived as that they're not believable. Some people depend on the abuser. Sometimes that caregiver is your only lifeline if you're on hospice, or if you're in need of constant medical care. You don't want them to get in trouble because then you have nowhere to go to, especially in the last couple of years where finding a caregiver was so difficult because of the shortage. You didn't want to risk not having someone. Denial and self-blame, that kind of goes hand in hand. You don't want to believe that it's happened and you're going to blame yourself. And then lack of awareness, and most people don't even realize until they get their bank statement 6 months from now and they only have $100, so their card gets declined because it's all gone. I've seen that happen. These are just some contacts for people who think that they've been abused or want more information on it that kind of goes a little more in detail. Then I wanted to go over FDIC insurance. The last couple of months, it's been a huge question mark, and it's been a total nightmare for me because it's insane the amount of money that people have in this, and it's very confusing. FDIC insurance is one of those things that's been very misconceived, especially in the banking market. Something that a lot of people don't realize, that money markets are covered in FDIC insurance. Money markets aren't a special account. It's a hybrid between a checking and savings. So it's just like your checking or savings account. It is fully covered by the FDIC insurance. That is the question I've had almost every single day for the last 6 months. Certificates of deposits. So pretty much anything that you have in a bank is covered by FDIC insurance. It's whenever you start going to financial advisors and that kind of stuff that gets a little different, or credit unions, because they're not FDIC insurance. When it doesn't cover stocks and bonds, mutual funds, life insurance policies, annuities, safe deposit boxes are pretty much the only thing within the actual physical bank that you can walk into that's not covered. But all your basic accounts are always covered. You have $250,000 per person. That is kind of a wiggle room. If you have a trust and you have 4 beneficiaries, you can actually have $1 million in coverage if you have that account named in the trust, because each beneficiary gives you $250,000. So that's always my kind of like catch-all for someone who's getting a large deposit or wants to have everything in one bank versus here. That if you open a trust, you should have one anyways if you have a large, portfolio, and then just name 4 beneficiaries. That gives you $1 million in coverage. And that's the easiest way to kind of keep your money controlled, and you can kind of make sure that who you want gets your money gets it. Single accounts per person, I have $250,000 in FDIC insurance. If me and my husband open an account together, that's $500,000. So each entity, each EIN number gives you an additional FDIC insurance. So if you have 5 businesses with 5 EINs, you have $250,000 per EIN number for those businesses. And then retirement accounts, IRAs are really, really tricky. I've run into this recently where per IRA at one bank is only $250,000, and there's no way around it. So those are the ones that we've had some difficulties with people. And if you ever have any questions, you can always go to the FDIC.gov website, and there's a calculator where you can calculate your insurance, or I can do that for you for free. It's super easy. There's always ways that we can tell you how much you're covered or what to do. On a side note on this, we actually have what we call an IntraFi network at OakStar Bank. We're the only bank in the area that offers this, where we have a separate system that we work with that sweeps money over and gives you dollar-to-dollar coverage, but it's also held in OakStar Bank. So if you didn't want to have to go to Central and Great Southern and Heritage, but you wanted to have more coverage, we can sweep it over. It's a zero cost to you, and it's dollar-to-dollar coverage. It's really, really nice. The grandparent scam, I kind of touched base on this a little bit. Usually this is someone who knows your grandkid or follows social media. Sadly, it's not difficult anymore to, follow a paper trail. Usually they cry to disguise the voice because, everyone has a high pitched or lower, different voice when they're crying. And they're pleading the victim to wire them money and to not tell anyone because they're embarrassed, or it's super late at night and you're super confused. IRS telephone scams, these are the most common that we see, apart from like the work from home scams. The IRS calls you saying, hey, I'm going to issue a warrant for your arrest if you don't send me money. And they're so urgent, they're so pushy about it that a lot of people fall for that scam. They'll send you bogus IRS emails. The IRS isn't going to email you. And they actually can mimic phone numbers now, which is super terrifying. And they always threaten jail time. I've never seen the driver's license revocation, but they're, oh, I'm going to send an FBI agent to your house right now if you don't give me the money. And they usually have you send them the copies like by gift cards, which I think is super weird that people don't figure that out, that that's not normal. IRS will always send a written letter. They're never going to ask for payment or credit card over the phone, and they never request personal financial information. The IRS is super stickler. They just want you to pay it on their website. If you do owe taxes, call them. I don't see anyone here owing taxes. If you don't owe taxes, you can always report the number. I don't know how beneficial that is, if it actually does anything for it. But you can always block the number. That's what I do. Phantom debt collection scams. They will trick victims into paying a debt that doesn't exist. They're not going to answer any questions. They'll have basic information about you. I'm surprised that a lot of information is like public knowledge that you can get from the courthouse or off social media. And they always use threats and scare tactics. They're not going to give you any information for them. They just want you to give their credit card information over the phone or to send pictures of gift cards that you buy the information. And they're always going to ask you for information. Charity scams. This is a charity organization kind of, so I figured this would be perfect for it. A charity scam, they're going to refuse to provide you any information. They're not going to give you any proof for the tax deduction or provide anything, which is, if you're donating a large sum to a charity, you're going to want that. They're going to mimic the name of another organization. Usually they'll change the spelling, or they'll like add a .org or something at the end where it's like similar but not the same, and you're not going to catch it. And then they thank you for the pledge that you don't remember making. So they're going, oh, you donated $50 last year. They're going to kind of make it seem like you just forgot something, and this is something you're going to continue to do. I know we have, are you guys veterans? Anyone in here? That's what I thought. So scams that target veterans benefits. I had never heard of this, so I thought it would be a good thing to touch base on. Individuals may scam veterans or surviving spouses out of their pension benefits with a pension benefit filling scam or lump sum payment for future benefits. I had never heard of this, so hopefully it doesn't happen very often, but I thought it might be something kind of to touch base on. So no one's ever going to call you requesting a lump sum, or you know who's going to contact you regarding your VA benefits, not some random person out of Mumbai. To avoid the VA pension filling scams, individuals who help you prepare a file scan may be accredited. So you can go to this website and you can see exactly who should be helping you fill out those forms. Don't pay a fee. There's no fee for helping file the initial claim. I didn't realize it was yellow. Avoid attorneys or claim agents who try to market investments in connection to your claim. So they're not going to try to have you invest anything from your VA benefits. And know that shifting assets into certain types of investments may affect your Medicaid, Medicare benefits. So sometimes, you know, if you make too much money in certain things, you're gonna lose certain benefits. So just be wary of that. Pension advance payment scams. Pension advance payment are gonna be costly. Say no to arrangements that allow the pension advance payment provider access to your account. So make sure that they're not a signer or anything that, like, you're not signing anything that gives them authorization to pull funds out. Remember that VA benefits cannot be garnished by a creditor, and seek advice from a trusted financial expert. So always go to who you know and trust. I think I'm almost done, I swear. Avoid loans with high interest and fees from your pension. Don't sign over control of your benefits. That's a big one. Make sure that you know who it is, and if you should never be signing over the benefits for your pension. And don't buy life insurance policy if you don't want or need. That's something that I fall victim to, because I get a call from the union every year that my dad was in saying, hey, we can get you this life insurance policy for X amount of dollars. And you would still feel pressure to do it. And I cancel it the next week because I can't afford it. So don't do it if you don't want it. And then this is last slide, I swear. Conclusion, there's so many different types of just everyone exposure. It's not just elderly, people fall for it all the time. There's probably like 30 more that I didn't go over today because again, there's 180 slides and we didn't have that time. But just be diligent and know who has access to your account, and just that you can trust them. Just don't let anybody be your financial advisor or have access to your funds. That's all.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I won the Nigerian lottery and
Are you prepared?
I don't want my money yet, I just want to.
Well, did you give them your bank account? Because that's what they're gonna ask for.
Do it, and,
Yeah.
I forget my grandfather.
10%. Usually they like get some random.
Prince.
Oh,
Well, I'm royalty, I didn't have.
it's fine. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, good.
These,
Anything else?